We're gonna go right into the next poem, which I'm gonna do. So this is the poem that I did at our Shakespeare Slam Lit. So it's partly inspired by Shakespeare, includes some of his Sonnet 27, but a lot of my own thoughts as well. So I hope you guys like it. Weary with toil, I haste me to my bed, the dear repose for limbs with travel tired. But then begins a journey in my head to work my mind when body's work's expired. For then my thoughts from far where I abide give birth to stories I cannot control, stories that unfold grandly like oriental rugs onto my mind's bare brown floors. I am merely a cherry blossom pattern watching from a panel of wallpaper as dreams furnish my mind with unexplained epics, stories told so quickly I don't question them. In the morning, I sift through the rubble of the life I live with eyes closed. I find locks of my future daughter's black hair and discover that I have been married. I find a pearl exfoliated by the contractions of the ocean's belly and discover that I have drowned. Each morning, I add myself to the world, identical to anyone, but for the burden of these false memories. They run through me like diesel, and something in this writer's blood yearns to make them real. So I draw my dreams in human language, call them poetry, call them fiction. I am the age-old vehicle of inspiration, nameless beside the muse who writes me into relevance. Her altar is here in the sheets where the shape of my body lies like a signature. By day, you put the color in my thoughts. They warned me about this kind of love, the kind that makes of us refugees in a state of distraction, seeking asylum in flower-laced poetry. I wrote poems to you. Once, you asked if you could sleep in my bed. I imagined you tossing and turning in my dust, flakes of my skin swept up in yours, your warm body, coating my sheets in oil and your dreams dripping into the dregs of mine. I said no. Baby, I love you, but you don't tamper with this altar. This is the portrait of the artist at work, and you can paint it from a distance, see her crawl beneath the underbelly of her blanket and lie still. Still until the wee hours have dyed the world a million shades of black and she can't find herself. Silence scrubs the world from her used skin, and she is blank, a canvas for the scribbles of a second consciousness. That night, my thoughts, from far where I abide, began a zealous pilgrimage to you, and kept my drooping eyelids open wide. Looking on that darkness which the blind do see, I saw the two of us tossing and turning in the starry night of a closed eyelid. The next morning, I couldn't look you in the eye. Baby, I love you, but I refuse to see you in my dreams. Nighttime is when I do my best work. That time has nothing to do with us. The morning after you invaded, I wrote your portrait. I wrote you into histories populated by silhouettes growing against needlepoint skylines and into odes to unsung boys unsticking themselves from the rose thorns of manhood and into the wallpaper of my autobiography. And sometimes I still write you, but it is only ritual. Only when my soul's imaginary sight presents thy shadow to my sightless view, which, like a jewel hung in ghastly night, makes black night beauteous, and her old face new. When they ask me how I write, I tell them I merely shed stories through my fingerprints. When they are born, they bear my features and coloring and temper, but they can trace their lineage without spelling my name. Thus, by day, I claim to wield the pen, and every night, my dreams hold the ink again. Thank you guys. Although there's a lot of snapping during the Shakespeare part, so I guess that's the only part you guys like. That's fine. Anyway, all right, does anybody here have siblings? Anybody in the crowd have siblings? Who has sisters? Like one sister, a couple? Oh, your sister goes here? Where's your sister? Oh, that's So cute. Well, our next poem is about sisterhood, you know, one of my favorite things. So please welcome to the stage, Becky.
Okay, so I come from Zimbabwe, and I'm going to university here in America, and my sister is at university in Australia. So it's quite far apart. So this poem is about that. Okay. To my only ally and my best enemy, I never noticed you really, my shadow born behind me. Yet you are the only person I have spent my whole life with. The distance between parts of our family was the space in which we grew, fused as one. Our peace treaties were drawn and signed when step strangers forced our parents to waltz like couples are supposed to, pushing us off the giant shoes we had tiptoed upon. We knew what separation meant. When we unstitched ourselves and flew to the opposite ends of the earth, it was just leaving for college. You probably realized earlier that it was more than that. You watched me leave first, watched me return, and noticed that our edges didn't quite align. I couldn't see myself, but I could still see you. A familiar silhouette fused to my feet, cast in the image of myself, I thought. You must forgive me for this assumption. It was because I was in charge of the passports when we flew unaccompanied. It was because you whispered in my ear what you wanted at restaurants. When adults asked us what it was that you liked to do at school, I held your hand and prompted you. When you broke your arm, I drew healing pictographs on your cast. I thought I was responsible for the way your bones fused back together. I assumed you'd always be there to take care of. But now, the sun sets at different times, 12 hours apart, one of us constantly in night. I can't see my shadow. Our tear ducts used to be in sync. We giggled until we cried, or we lashed out at one another, only to hurt ourselves when the other's tears began to fall down their cheeks. We cupped our hands around those shared tears and held onto them. We held onto the power to hurt one another like no one else knew how to. We guarded that power fiercely and used it less and less. The other day, a friend cried, and I cried with her. I had never cried for anyone else besides us. I confused her pain for mine. With my fingers pressed up against the computer screen, I still tried to catch your tears. They hit cold plastic. Skype skipping a beat in your voice. I watch emoticons and hear your emotions retold, reenacted to keep me in the loop. And it's okay. We know what separation means, what it is to love in the spaces that distance creates. My shadow has gone, but only because you grew in its place. And we still wear our childhood storylines in crystallized saline rings between wrists and elbows, tears that dried on each new inch of skin that grew as we cupped our hands around our tears. Traceries of childhood that can never be washed away, no matter whose joy or sorrow we may hold.